of this crypto. He did buy some Shido on Victor's advice, but that's about it. He's not a threat.
Every single time Victor runs up in the chat, he'll drop gold, and it's totally like for every ounce of gold he gives us a pound of Shido shill.
Yeah, man.
Oh man. All right. So Grant,
So talk
on the
to me.
last episode, we were speaking about what would happen if Twitter were to disappear. Where would the crypto conversation go? We think it probably flows to LinkedIn. Also, as a creator, how would that affect people? Because a lot of people, Twitter is their thing. That's their main driver to their content, to their merch, to their product, to their service. And I was thinking last night, what happens if Binance goes down?
Binance is down.
Wait,
no, but I mean, like,
no. What do you mean by that, Jay?
Binance stopped trading yesterday.
For how long?
Is it back up yet? I mean, they got hacked, right? Binance got hacked.
Oh, okay. They did. Yeah, I read that they got hacked. I thought I meant like SBF, BlockFi. I mean like insolvent,
liquidity,
like
insolvency. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
like what happens?
Why don't you assume that that's what's going to happen here?
Oh, I think it's probably going to happen. I just assume now it's going to happen to everything. But that's my question.
I feel like with the hack, it's probably like maybe the hack isn't that big of a deal, but like these things usually start out really small, but then in crypto land, like after the weekend, Monday's gonna come out, we're gonna hear like, oh man, it's this massive thing, and Binance is down forever. Like
on those lines, it would be interesting. Good morning, Victor. How you doing? Yeah, we're live
the whole time. Oh.
No, not the whole time.
Jay's got to curtail. He's like, I got to take my theories from here down to about here.
Yeah. SBF, the SBF conversation on how he targeted me and made me sick, and how he's targeting Jarrett with allergies, but not Jay because he invested himself. That's too funny. You guys missed that, so that wasn't live. So on these lines, Austin Rickley is a buddy of mine, and I want him on this show because I think he's actually adds a different dynamic. But he's been involved in a lot, and I've referenced him sometimes. And Jarrett, you've met him, I think. Jay, I don't recall if you've met him or not. But he's been a good buddy of mine for Schedule.me. And he called me when I was sick, the middle of last week, or he WhatsApped me, and he said, Grant, KuCoin's having liquidity issues, bail. And I remember, Jarrett, I remember your situation with BlockFi, and the phrase you kept using is, I didn't move fast enough. I kind of, for some reason, go ahead.
Well, I did. So when the second that FTX went down, I went and I got maybe 85% of what I had on BlockFi out because it was in Ethereum. And I had an issue here where I had stuff whitelisted, so I couldn't move it.
Got it.
And what I didn't do was move all the other stuff into Ethereum because I had a wallet that was okay. The address was okay to get it out.
Got it.
That's what I didn't do. But yeah, no one can move quick enough. I'm currently getting my stuff off Binance and Coinbase, so I don't never have to deal with this again. I have my ledger.
Coinbase too.
I'm doing it. Everything. I'm just getting it off everything. I just trust no one.
So this is how we can add value to people today, or in the next few episodes, and that is us talking about how much you can build your bags on chain, how to build your bags on chain directly. Because this is what I had to do. For those who don't know, and these gentlemen might remember, I've been running experiments for over a year with lending on KuCoin, building up a GameFi bag, building up right now ISO 20022 bags, right? I've been doing this for now months, if not up to a year. But a lot of it's been sitting on KuCoin. I had to liquidate it all. And I remember your story about Ethereum. I started trying to liquidate, and my liquidation fees were coming in at like $8, $9 per transaction on Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Is that a lot for what you had?
Is that a lot? It's a lot relative to the universe. So no, like not relative to my dollars, but it's a lot relative to transaction fees. I converted it. So like, think about this. Gala is an ERC 720 coin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you change that, you're going to pay Ethereum fees on that. So it's like $8 each transaction. So let's say with Gala or Engine, I had a bunch of Engine. Like, but it's not a bunch of Engine. Like Engine came to a couple $100. So that $8 is like, wait a minute, that's pretty significant. So it's not like $8, $9 on several thousands of dollars. It's $8, $9 on 500 of this, 600 of that, and it's just like, oh my god. So I remember what you said about Ethereum, how you wish you would have condensed it all, and then that transaction fee wouldn't have been that bad, right? Well, in my case though, Cardano is king. So I converted everything to Cardano, and I'm sitting there converting everything to Cardano, and it dawned on me, like I was sniffling, I was wiping my nose, I wasn't panicked, I was just like do. And the phrase came to me, this is what a run on the bank looks like.
Oh, this is exactly what you're doing. Exactly what you're doing.
It's oh my god, Victor.
Oh my god, Victor. Normally you add some value to the universe before you come in super hot with the Shido shill, but I love it this morning. I love it. Absolutely. I mean, who needs coffee when I have the Shido shill? I'm awake.
Bring it, man. That is hilarious. Getting ready for another 20x. You know what? I'm jumping in on this. And here's my point.
I agree. I'm in on it. At this point, I'll just put all my crypto into it because nothing else has worked apparently.
Nothing else is working. So I turned it all to ADA Cardano. Now I've got a fat bag of Cardano sitting on Coinbase, and it's temporarily there. And my next theory, and we could talk about this in another time, and that is how this affects dollar cost averaging. Because I've been dollar cost averaging. So if you're dollar cost averaging, I might have a dollar cost average on Bitcoin. What was I at? I want to say I was at a $21,000 dollar cost average. And so, okay. And I keep buying down. I keep buying down. But I technically had to liquidate. So I'm liquidating under my dollar cost average. So this would be an interesting mathematical conversation because now I'm going to take my fat ADA bag and I have a portfolio distribution mix, like a portfolio mix. And my next experiment is, well, maybe I just recreate the portfolio. How does that, let's talk to somebody. How does that actually affect my realized real dollar cost average? Because by all intents and purposes, I sold negative.
Well, on KuCoin, you're not in KYC, right? So
correct.
When you move, let's say you take from your Coinbase $5,000 and you move $5,000 into your KuCoin. When you move that money back, so let's say it's $4,000, so you've lost 20%. Mm-hmm. You just declare that loss. This is all really pertinent because on the latest episode of One of the Blockchain coming out this Tuesday, I had this guy on who's a tax expert in crypto, and we were talking about all this. Yeah, and we were talking about this, and I gave him my example because the BlockFi, I do have KYC. So when I took Bitcoin, Litecoin, USDC, and Gemini, and I turned them into Ethereum, that was all taxable events. And so even though they're all going to be at losses compared to the original value that I'd put in, so I have to declare all of those as losses. The whole thing's crazy. The whole thing's absolutely crazy because the IRS can easily see that. With your KuCoin, it's not as the IRS really can't see it now. But one of the things that we were talking about in this podcast is how in the future, the future could be even by the spring of 2023, retroactively for all of 2022. What would happen if they say, and once again, they're not going to do this, but if they were smart enough and they could get basically, morning, Allison. Grant is better. He's back in the New York Blues.
Thank you, Allison.
Actually, I want Victor to talk more about what he's talking about, but for those who are listening on the podcast or audio, I don't want them to feel too lost with my train of thought here. But the point is that
taking the loss.
Oh, right. The thing that's not going to happen, but could happen in theory, is one day the IRS is going to get so good and they're going to have an algorithm and they're going to be able to get on Etherscan or whatever it is, or any chain. And they're going to be able to say, okay, Grant has a Coinbase account and then he sends it to this wallet. That's it. He either buys on Coinbase or he sends all his money to this wallet. So that wallet's probably his. Let's go into that wallet and see all the other things he's doing. And then they're going to go in and then they're going to see all of your taxable events from all of those other chains. They're going to
I
say,
hope
okay,
they
that's a
do. Yeah.
KuCoin wallet. Then they're going to be able to say, Grant, you have unrealized gains here, or you have realized gains in
yeah.
this money. And he was given a really good example. He said something that will happen is that you'll put in like 50,000 into Coinbase, for example.
Yeah.
And you bought Bitcoin at 50,000. Let's just live in the world. You buy one Bitcoin at 50,000. Well, now Bitcoin's down to 16,000.
Yeah.
So there's 34,000 that's missing. And what will happen is, oh God, I'm butchering this example. But basically what will happen is you're going to owe realized gain taxes, or then say you move that Bitcoin to another wallet or you trade it out for something. You may have realized gain taxes that are greater than the amount of liquidity you have in the bank, in Coinbase. And at that point, you're in trouble. And then at that point, you're going to probably commit tax fraud. And this is already happening. He said he had you have to listen to the episode because it's crazy. But he basically had a client who, had $1 million in realized gains, but now sitting on all of his accounts has less than $100,000. So what does he do come tax season? He has to come up with $900,000 to make sure he covers himself. That's just due to the volatility.
This person, is that to say he claimed realized gains? And so when he claimed realized gains,
he's banking the gains all the time because he's making the transactions. So he owes all that money. And then the value
goes down 85%.
And now he doesn't have the money to pay back. The only way it works out is if you can pay the tax in the coin that you traded and just at whatever value.
Well, yeah, or Jay's got this. So what you have to do is when you trade, you always have to, and this is what anyone who runs a business knows, but some traders don't run their trades like businesses. They're a little bit more ad hoc. When you make a trade, you have to take the amount of money you're going to need for taxes, whether it's short-term or long-term gain. And then depending on your tax bracket and depending on you're using your EIN for a business or using your social security as an individual investor, you have to take money out of the market and put it in that slush fund that just sits there. And you look at it and you hate it, whether you pay your taxes quarterly or you pay them annually. And this person wasn't doing that. So then when the bill came due for the realized gains, which was over 7 figures, more than $1 million, they total on their account, on their exchange, have less than 1/10 of what they owe. So they're just screwed,
You get to a great point. And this is technically not Crypto Saturday, Small Business Saturday, if we were doing our traditional thing. You're touching on a very important point that it doesn't matter if this is crypto or it doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. I would suggest that anyone, you call it a slush fund, call it what it is. It's a tax fund. And you only need to pull it off of realized gains. So in business, we call that revenue. In investment, we call it realized gains, right? And so when you have that income hit your account, you right away, we take profit first. And we go, okay, how profitable are we going to be? And what's too greedy and what's not, greedy enough? And so right now we pull 5% profit no matter what. So that right out of the gate, if I got to tighten my belt elsewhere, I'll tighten my belt, but my company's going to be profitable. And so we pull 5% that goes in a fund and you're not allowed to spend it on anything. But the second account is a 10%, and we've reduced it since, is a 10% tax fund. And so we watch that fund grow to thousands of dollars by the end of the year. And
yours is 10%?
Yeah.
Man, Florida's cute. Florida is cute. You guys
are
cute.
Yeah. We don't have state tax.
I know. But the way my breaks down, I have 5% profit no matter what.
Yeah.
I have 20 or 25% tax because I live in Massachusetts.
Oh, sucker. Let me tell you something. You can start an entity down here and I'll get it set up, bro. Because
I've asked you about that. And I asked you to change your name to Jose and you wouldn't do it. So we got to circle back to this.
Not financial advice. Well, here, we'll get this. We'll get this.
Jay's like, are we recording?
We'll get this. I've reduced it from 10% to 5%. Here's why. That 10%, what happens when you have this account, and this is, again, doesn't matter whether you're in crypto or any other business, what happens in that account is you pay your quarterlies, your estimated quarterlies, but it doesn't come out. It doesn't reduce that by much. By the end of the year, when you're filing, now you're in the tax game where you're like, how much of this can I save? And so then you play the tax deduction game. And so it's the impetus is on us to deduct as much as we can. And whatever's left in that fund is an end of the year bonus to us.
That happens to me every year. And Grant, you and I have been dominating, and I know Jay has a nugget he's about to just drop on me, and I'm going to giggle. But I also want to read. See, Victor normally drops all these facts, and then he shills Cheeto.
Yeah.
So we got a lot going on here.
Yeah.
He said nothing else is working. Correcto. He says get more silver bar now. And actually, I'd like Victor to talk more about this. I don't think on the show we've ever talked about acquiring rare metals, but I like this move. And maybe Jay, if you want to say something, because he says he's waiting for. Go ahead.
This is the play. I'm not sure what Grant is doing. He's showing us.
That's my
he's
silver
showing
coins.
his bling. He's showing us his silver.
My silver and gold.
He's probably got a grill he hasn't put in yet because he's living in Florida and he's just trilling out.
What do you got, Jay?
I really like this idea of buying commodities or precious metals. And the whole thing behind it is, as we head deeper into a recession, or as the Fed just continues to mess around and give us a whole bunch of uncertainty, and you're not really sure about what's happening in the market, I think it makes sense to go into either a commodity like gold or silver, or go directly into the grandfather of all crypto, which is Bitcoin. But the whole thinking behind it is, I think like me for sure, and a lot of other people have lost faith in these stable coins. So
Yes.
that's not
Totally.
where people are putting their gains anymore. And even
Correct.
if you're making a loss, it's kind of tough to justify leaving your entire bag into coins where you don't have insider information. So like Grant,
Yes.
when you said you put everything into ADA, I was like, whoa, that's like all of your eggs in one basket kind of thing. Like if something happens over there.
As a temporary hold while I'm rebuilding my portfolio, but you're correct. It is a risk. Anything, not just Cardano, but anything is a risk move if it's consolidated into one. Totally agree.
Yeah. But then like if you had, instead of buying ADA, had bought gold,
Sure.
it's highly likely that you'd be able to sell that gold at a pretty good value versus the ADA that can go from whatever price it is now to down 50% in under 24 hours, because we don't necessarily have the measures that they have in the stock market to cool that stuff down.
I faced that dilemma. So I had a huge chunk of USDC stablecoin that was doing, one of my lending experiments at KuCoin. And, they were promising X, Y, and Z returns. I still think KuCoin, my conclusion on my lending experiments on KuCoin is that they are not paying out returns because they're promising X, Y, and Z. And I've been in there for a year, and I think I told you guys I've maybe made $50 in returns. It's nuts. It's nuts low. So I had a bunch of USDC, Jay, to your point, and I thought, well, USDC is an Ethereum coin. And so my transaction fees on that are still going to be high. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll consolidate this all to DAI coin. And I've liked DAI coin because it earns a pretty good return. And so I went through, I like Tether, and I'm like, oh God, Tether's sketch right now. And and I didn't know if KuCoin was imminently collapsing and nothing has happened yet, or if it was just rumor. In rumors helpful if it's from a reliable source,
Yeah.
And so I thought, God, I can't do one of these stable coins. So you're absolutely right. This is where IRL has an advantage over the current state of crypto and what Victor's talking about of, God, I wish I could have just transitioned this. And maybe Jarrett would slap me and say, you could have put it all into Bitcoin and paid one transaction fee and just done that.
Yeah.
Maybe
why ADA over Bitcoin? I guess
because my transaction fees were 31 cents.
Oh, okay. So just for the transaction fee?
Yeah, it happened instantly. Yeah. And I love Cardano, but yes.
Have you heard this thing about Coinbase stopping support for Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum Classic, XLM, and XRP.
Coinbase wallet. You need to make sure you qualify that so people aren't
Oh, yeah,
freaking
that
out. They're like, I heard on Not Crypto Bros. It's just Coinbase
it's a
wallet.
wallet
Yeah.
and not
It's
not
just their
traded.
That
product, the
matters.
Coinbase wallet. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that does matter. They basically said that there wasn't enough movement for them to keep the systems up. So they're taking those off, which I found to be very interesting. Because I assumed that I assumed that Bitcoin Cash and the new ISO 20022 coins would have been blowing up. I get Ethereum because people are going to start to stake it, and I don't think you can stake through the wallet. So like now that
But
we're in
it's
proof of
classic, right? It's ETH.
Sorry, you're right. Yeah, so you're right. Proof of that is still proof of work. Yeah, I don't understand that, which is really weird. I guarantee they add Classic back when the bull run starts because everyone will buy Classic thinking, well, it has Ethereum on it. That happens every year.
Interesting.
Victor says he's also waiting for Bitcoin, as I've said, to go to 8K. I love that. I've had many people say that, so I'm saying it. I say it anytime I get on anything. I just say it's going to go to 8. I think we'll land somewhere between 8 to 12. And then he also says, yeah. And then he goes back and Victor says, yeah, all that in transactions over 600. And then he says, what are you going to do when they take everything automatically with AI account in the CBDC?
This is
Once
where it's
we have-
going.
I think this is good.
Yeah, same here. I think it's a good idea. Sorry to cut you boys off.
No.
agree.
I think we all agree. I'm fine with that. Like if the government I don't have to fill out something and they just know what I earned and know what I just take my whatever percent
care.
based on where I live. Done. It would actually save the government billions of dollars.
Let me tell you something about the government. I have hated.
Let me tell you something about the government. The government.
Well, no, it's not going to go where you think it's going to go.
Okay, I'll only allow you to do this if you pronounce government like GUBMI.
Government.
The government. The government.
And I'm calling him Florida guy says government. Florida man. So let me tell you something about the government. I have no freaking cares in the world about the taxes I pay. I don't give a shit. I don't care if taxes are 45% at the federal level. I don't care. Here's why. I have never been rejected for a deduction in my life. People who bitch about taxes are fucking lazy. This country. Huh?
What's a deduction?
Shut your face.
I don't know.
Are you being for real?
All right. He's a saint. He's a Catition.
I don't have
lost
taxes.
in Toronto. He has no idea how the US tax system works.
Okay, no, that's good. No, that's great to know. And this is really good to know. As a Catition, you don't pay Canadian taxes?
Oh, I have to file taxes. I've never had to pay them. I've never had to pay out of pocket for anything.
But why is that?
I mean, they take them out of your paycheck, right?
No, I think it's because when I came here as a student, and so you get a bunch of tax credits, and I still have all of those tax
Okay.
Dude, Jay's the Donald Trump of Canada. He just got tax credits 13 years ago, and he's just living like
the Donald Trump. That's too funny. And I want to get to these comments, and Arthur has a great comment. Victor's coming in, but here's what a deduction is for Jay and those who have been educating themselves with an MBA but still don't know what a tax deduction is. A tax deduction is this. It is your student credit. And what I mean is this. Let's say you owe $100 in taxes. If I buy a house, there's a whole list of things that I go, okay, if I do this sort of home improvement, the government says I'm allowed to deduct that dollar value from what I owe.
Oh, okay.
So this is the D-Trump. I mean, this is the world that Donald Trump lives in. So the same as with losses, capital gains and losses, right? And so when you have capital gains and capital losses, like for example, the reason I'm still a little confused about Jarrett's example of the guy who had $1 million and now he has 100,000. If they're accusing him of having realized gains, he now needs to claim a $900,000 loss. And that loss is a deduction. Now, he might not be able to take that. There's tons of really intricate rules in America and Canada, actually. Well, most countries. But my point is this. I don't mind paying as much taxes as they tell me to pay, especially in America, because I know the tax system pretty well. And I know that I can take deductions. For example, if I travel to visit you, Jay, in Canada, and my trip was a 10-day trip, only 4 of those days have to be business oriented. So let's say we go down to coffee and brainstorm your next business. Okay, that's day 1. Let's say that we talk on Thursday about X, Y, and Z. 4 days are business, and the whole trip is write-off because it was international travel. In the United States, it's 50%. So if I travel anywhere in the United States, I visited and lived in Breckenridge. I was there for 2 months. Can I justify that a month of that was dedicated to building marketing material, photo content for my social media reels, and all of that as a tax deduction? Yep. So my company pays for it, and half of that's tax deduction. So here's my point. I don't care if we pay taxes. So when we talk about this accountant, please, dear God, let the accountant go. They'll tell me I owe more probably, but they have never rejected when I sit down and itemize my deductions. Does the deduction thing make sense now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
There are like ways that you don't have to pay taxes on some stuff. Okay.
It's called legal tax avoidance. If you do tax evasion, go to jail. You can do legal tax avoidance. And FYI, I was in a telemarketing business that took care of all of this for people. So I had that education in my early 20s. Go ahead, Jarrett. You were going to go somewhere.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's a really important education. And I think about Kiyosaki. I think he said it, but it's something that's the most salient when it comes to taxes. And it's that people that complain about taxes don't understand them. And the same people that complain about taxes end up paying them, while the people that understand taxes don't pay them. And I opened up an LLC back in 2017, 2018, because I started to basically do more websites for people. And the second I had this thing open, I was like, oh, got a new computer. Do I use that for websites? Done. So say my computer costs $1,000. Then at the end of the year, say I owe the government $10,000 in taxes. Well, now it's $9,000. Yep. That's basically, it's a write-off essentially.
Yeah,
like
a write-off.
There's different ways to think of it, but I want to go here. We got some,
so great stuff.
I'm just going up and I'm going to get to Arthur's because I know that's salient. So it says, Victor says, silver is super low and you can keep it in your house, wink face. No one will rug it.
Yeah.
And 5X potential in next year. Silver is an interesting one. And actually, Victor sent me an article that I still have, or I think it's a YouTube and I still have to watch it. So I'm going to make sure I brush up on that. I'm obviously not going to buy a physical earth metal when I can buy Bitcoin, but it's still good to understand the landscape. And then he says, not about taxes is control what you can buy or cannot. Agree with you, Grant. We need a crypto accountant, LOL. Yes. And then Allison says flight. I don't know if she's flying or our conversation took flight. Does she need us to send money? Should we send ADA? Not really sure. But Arthur says Cardano feels like a stable coin on most days. He's clearly as bullish about Cardano as you are, Grant. So that's nice.
Well, I don't know that, like, and I'm with Arthur on this. And if I were to say this comment, which I have, some days that feels like a feature. And other days that feels like a bug. You know what I'm saying? Like you could wake up in a bull market and be like, God, Cardano feels like such a stable coin. When's it going to take off? But then in a down market, you're like, Cardano's feeling like a stable coin right about now. And that's an okay thing. Excuse me. That's too funny. Yeah, Allison, tell us what you meant by flight. This is interesting. Victor corrects me. Victor, I hear you. Victor says it's not about taxes. He doesn't care about taxes. It's about control of what you can buy and not buy. Now, I hear that. I've never had the government tell me what I can't. In fact, I challenge anyone listening to this show to tell me and show me when the government has actually prevented you from what you can buy and what you can't buy. I'd love to see that. Now, you could make
I feel like that does happen, though. No?
My G, I was 20 years old and couldn't get alcohol.
Yeah.
I couldn't get cannabis for a long time here, but I could get it in Colorado.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't get scheduled. There's actually a lot of things. But I couldn't gamble until I was 21.
In business as well, right? Like there's certain products that you can't buy unless you're approved. Like you can't buy alcohol and
No. Listen. You can still go do that. Just go to fucking jail. My point is this. No. This matters.
Grant has a very weird motivational speech. He's going to get people arrested for listening to Not Cryptos. We used to have to say not financial advice. This is just not life advice.
No, here's my point. I do agree with Victor. Like, it's about control of what you can. And I hear that fear. And a lot of my friends right now, for some reason, when we go into recession, there's a lot of conversation about oppressive government practices. And it's mingled. If Victor were saying, it's just about laws. But we were correlating this with an automatic accountant. And that automatic accountant is going to be taking care of our finances and looking at stuff. My point is it's not literally going to be grabbing your hand and telling you, Jarrett, you reach for the alcohol and liquor at the liquor store with a fake ID and the government is there stopping you. There's no actual power stopping you. There's just laws for safety. So if what we're saying is we don't like that the government creates laws, that's okay. I get it. But my point is that a lot of these comments get into this like conspiracy of that the country, that the government is going to put us in FEMA camps, like that extreme, like the government's telling me what I can and can't do. You mean laws? Is that what we're talking about?
Grant, laws are the extension of the government. So
no, I'm not debating that. I'm not debating that laws tell you what is legal and not legal. But I think the language matters, that they're not preventing you or not preventing you. Heck, if you can steal that liquor and get away with it. I stole liquor when I was a kid and got away with it.
I don't know, like how long do you want to run and
Grant, your argument's a weird one today.
No, my point is there's a message going around that's mingled, that's saying that as these technologies come on, it will give the government a power that is on par with putting us in FEMA camps and controlling our every move. And my point is it will not. It won't do that any more than normal everyday laws do. That's my point.
So
and you're still free to act. It's just about laws. Go ahead.
This is just, first of all, this is such it feels like a very US centric conversation.
Yes, granted.
In other countries, if the government does something that they don't like, there tends to be overthrows of governments.
You're right.
There tends to be riots in the main, like most countries have one or two, mostly one main city that is not only the economic hub, but it's the cultural hub. We have like our country's so spread out that it's really hard to do this. This is the same problem that China has too, that it has so many countries with like so many cities with like 20 to 30 million people. Russia has the same problem. It's just so spread out and big. However, if you look at a country, I'm just going to use Colombia. If there's enough people in Bogota for like a week banging on pots and pans, blocking arteries, stuff gets changed. Same thing can be said for Madrid in Spain. Same thing can be said for Paris in France. Same thing can be said for London in England. It's kind of like outside of Europe, there's worlds that are just too big for kind of like social uprising to kind of make a difference. And I would throw India in there if it weren't for Gandhi, but what he did took a long time, right? And like it wasn't easy. I mean, being a pacifist against violent regime is difficult. So my point being, it seems like a very US centric thing because a lot of this conversation does come from libertarians who are uber worried about the government, literally the overreach, and the government's going to take my guns, and the government is going to do this and that. And, the government's going to have me eating Beyond Meat like all the vegans and take away my cows. And then I can't be a man and get animal protein and I'll wither away and die in the gutter. Right. They'll be the last thing they'll be holding onto their ledger, their Bitcoin. It's a very US argument. And I think it's an interesting one because I think your argument seems weird to me because you're like, imagine if you were in Afghanistan right now and the Taliban's there and you're like telling women to run around without like head coverings. And you're like, no one can stop you, right? You could do whatever you want, but if they catch you, they might kill you. But you can do whatever you want, baby. You got it. Like it seems kind of flawed when that's how the rules are set up. You're like,
you're absolutely right. The context I was coming from was the CBDC and the AI accountant, which is a US centric position. You're absolutely right. From a globalized worldview, there are governments that are physically preventing you from doing things. Totally granted. But yes, in the US.
But I actually think it's a really good, but obviously the US is now kind of like the world's playground where we play with democracy and we try to we figure things out here. It is totally a melting pot of ideas. But I'd actually be really interested. And if either of you have any insight on this, that'd be great. Or anyone listening, what is China doing on this? Because they're so far ahead on taking the digital yuan, getting it in actual Chinese citizens' wallets. And I wonder how they're tracking it, because they're already so much closer to this world where at the end of the year, it says, okay, you owe this much, or the government, or we owe you this much. This is why this happened. Click confirm to confirm, or you dispute. But most times it's all going to be on chain. So you're just going to be like, okay, confirm. And if it is with the Chinese government, you're probably not going to like hit disputes. You're just going to hit confirm.
Yeah.
I wonder what they're doing, because I actually think when it comes to the CBDC, they're going to show case study of things that work that maybe we adopt.
Yes.
We'll never say we adopt because we couldn't take anything from China, right? But they'll also have case study of things we can't do or shouldn't do because they're getting way too dystopian and way too kind of totalitarian. So that to me is very interesting.
There is, I just came across, while you were talking about this, I just came across, and I'm going to drop this in the comments for people, a Wired magazine article about the digital yuan. And first off, the cool factor here, the card has your balances on it and the tax you owe, I think. Like just the card, like your credit card. Like click the link. Very interesting. But I trust Wired because they come at it largely from a technological aspect, but they have a long reputation of between the lines writing about the sociological impacts. And they're usually fairly data driven. So I'm going to check this article out later because I am super curious. And I think Brian Naughton I think it was Brian or George Tortorolo who had a lot to say about this at one point. So I'd love to hear from them. And thank you for calling me out about the US centrism. I totally agree with that. People are dealing with really oppressive worlds out there. Come to America. I'm very open to that. Open borders, man. Trump's not here right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, come on in, man.
Oh my God. Oh, we've got some comments here, and I do want to call out Victor's comment because I think it's a really interesting one. Victor constantly, Arthur's dropping in some, I'd like one of you to take his comment as well. But Victor's comment is really, really important because when the Panama Papers came out, like 20, I don't even know, 16, 15, 14,
17, I thought.
17. Okay. I remember that they basically revealed that something like $30 trillion is flowing around the world.
Yeah.
And it's not being added into the GDP of any one country.
Correct.
And this is where you have, for example, Amazon, Apple, you have the FANG stocks that are all basically in Silicon Valley, and they're not paying into their local municipality. Like they're not even keeping up the roads or helping those schools because Apple has it all going through Ireland and then routing through wherever and then back. And I think what Victor's hitting on is really interesting because like this idea of the crypto haven, where if you move your company to PR, you get huge tax reductions. And, Victor's a very proud Puerto Rican, and many Puerto Ricans have been dealing with this issue since the pandemic started. And it really goes back to the land grab that happened there after Maria, the hurricane, where people's homes got destroyed. So say your home was worth $250,000 and the bank's not going to cover it anymore because say the bank got destroyed. This is just a pretty extreme hypothetical, but I'm sure it does align. So your home's worth $250,000, which on that island is a lot of money. It's now worth, I don't know, 150 because it got completely destroyed. But some gringo, some foreigner, some European, some rich person from Asia, Africa, Europe, wherever, comes along and says, you know what, I'll cut you a check for 125. Just write me over the title, and you're going to be there like, okay, that makes sense. Then I can move to a different part of the island, rebuild my home. I don't have to be necessarily here, whatever. There's a huge land grab that happened. And I actually know many people that went down and bought up condos and and they've just turned them into Airbnbs. But more recently, if you search Puerto Rico, like go away gringo type stuff, and you just Google this, the San Juan especially has turned into a place where digital nomads, US digital nomads, are running kind of rampant there. And a lot of them, if you make a Venn diagram of the US digital nomad and the crypto investor, the Venn diagram is pretty great. And so Puerto Rico is kind of at an interesting place because for a long time, and I know this to be true, the United States isn't a place where I thought of internally displaced peoples, IDPs. That's what you'd say in international affairs, the level of IDPs. These are places that would be more torn by war, by drought, by violence, by a country that's really new. Like when Yugoslavia broke up, there's always going to be issues in that part of the world because they're still like, this is mine, this is yours type thing. And so people are internally displaced. However, it's already starting to happen in the United States. A lot of this is driven by climate. Like that original idea in Puerto Rico goes back to the fact that there was a climate event that changed the real estate outlook and people's understanding of short-term and long-term wealth and what they were going to do in accumulation. Anyways, I'm going to get on a long track here, but the point is it's interesting to see within the United States and just countries in general, how people are going to kind of move around within to avoid taxes. Now, I think that this is more of a US phenomenon just because every state and every territory has its own tax incentives. But it's something that's not going to go away. And especially crypto plays a huge part in this. But do one of you want to take Arthur's left? He left a pretty long message here. And then Jamarly, what's up, man?
Yeah, man. Jamarly, good morning. I'll put this one up. Yeah, man. I'll put this one up, and then Jay, maybe you or I could take a look at his next one. Maybe this one makes sense in the context of the other one. I agree in principle. What I do not agree on is when you actually do not convert into your legal tender. I'm trying to remember the context of what that is, but let's pull up the other one in case that adds additional context. Arthur said, once paper cash, here, I'll probably need to actually pull up. Oh, I got the full one over here. Let me just read it first. Once paper cash has stopped being accepted and everything is digital, if there's a party that can decide whether your transaction is allowed or not allowed because of your views, posts that you've made, that's a major breach of privacy. I agree with that. I just don't see that that's what's going to happen or does happen. That's a major breach of privacy. It would absolutely be a breach of privacy. We all would like to, and individual sovereignty, agreed. We all would like to think that this isn't what's going to happen, but then why are people being deplatformed? Well, that's private companies. You're being deplatformed on a private platform because that platform does not agree with your views, like Yay. If you guys remember, Elon brought the boy back, and then he just ran his fucking mouth again. And Elon said, hey, listen, fair is fair, right? And so deplatforming is a private thing right now. Go ahead, Jarrett. What do you got?
No, I was just going to quote Kanye and say, what's a king to a god? That's all. Continue.
I literally thought that was Eminem in Rap God.
It may have been, but Kanye has it in one of his lines where he says, what's a king to a god? What's a god to a non-believer? It's one of the best lines. Like, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah, and then Arthur says, I stopped thinking that governments act in our best interest ages ago. Think cigarettes that you can buy in a shop. Jay, I'm going to pose this question to you. I believe that governments do not act in your individual best interest. I believe, to my core, governments are the net result of our species' selfish interest. What do you think?
That makes sense. I'm with that. Yeah. The only reason governments are sort of around is so that, the biggest guy in the room doesn't take control of all of the resources. It's so that we can share stuff and at least have some kind of rules. I'm not against what Arthur is saying here. The only issue that I have with the statement, and Arthur, maybe you want to jump in and share some more about it, is where somehow it seems like it's trying to equate the whole process of being deplatformed to not being able to use your currency or your money in a way that you want to. So there's that sort of thing that's sort of like bugging me. Like being deplatformed is something that's very private. Any social media company can say, we don't want you here anymore. Just like any restaurant can say that we don't want your business, get out. And no trespass you or whatever. So it's kind of weird, but in terms of whether or not how this whole thing works out in the end, I'm actually excited for that. I think Victor wasn't, but I'm excited for this whole era of CDBCs because now you get this opportunity where it allows for you to be a bit more financially risky, or you can take some more financial risks because the government now has access to all of the wallets that use its particular currency. And so if you and I go into a transaction, Jarrett, and I cheat you, like I don't pay you what you need to be paid, you file some
Interesting.
type of lawsuit against me, and it turns out that you're victorious, the government can now say like, okay, we can either reach into Jarrett's wallet and pull that money out, give it back to Jay, or reach into Jay's wallet, pull that money out, give it back to Jarrett, or we block Jay's wallet altogether so he never makes another transaction. None of that money ever gets used again, and we just issue Jarrett some new tokens, and everybody moves on happy. That's something that's impossible to do with cash.
It's not impossible. It just looks different, right? This is where you get sued and then you have to go to jail because you can't pay something. It would just be so much more instantaneous and very executive, very quick. It would be judge, jury, and executioner very quick because it's kind of all on chain. If you and I had agreed to something and you didn't pay me, and I'm like, hey, Jay owes me $1,000. And then I basically go to the code or the algorithm and say, hey, look at this. And then like, oh, yep. And then they say, Jay, what do you want to do? Do you want to pay him or do you want to be blocked for 30 days? You have 1 hour to decide, right? That's kind of interesting. And I want to, if it's okay, I want to shift the conversation just a little bit away from the accountant. But I do think this conversation we're having right now, I know that it sounds very like Minority Report, but this is already here because China's already doing something similar to this, and it will happen in the United States as we do roll out a CBDC. I do think that Arthur is conflating the two things. One is being deplatformed from a private company, and he's using that to say we should be worried about the government deplatforming people just due to who's going to be in office. I think it's a jump. One's a private company and one's kind of like a internet, like one's like a sovereign entity's government. However, who knows? Because the politics are so divided in this country. What if you have, for example, and once again, I'm going to use the United States example just because the United States is fascinating the way that our states are different from our federal. So unless the Republicans pass a federal ban on abortion, in Massachusetts, where I am, which is a liberal haven, you're still going to be able to access certain reproductive rights, including abortion. However, if everyone's on a CBDC, they could turn off wallets from going to any place that offers reproductive rights. If the president wanted to do that from like an executive order, it would just get super interesting into like how the states and our federal system. So I do see what he's saying. Arthur, what I'm saying is I both agree with you and I disagree with you, and I'm trying to sit in the middle and see which one feels right. But before I pass the mic to you guys, I want to call out the fact that we have Leslie Profits. This is a sign. This is a sign of success. When you have someone coming in your live stream that's saying 5 days of special offers, 25th of Black Friday, our tiers are available at a 20% discount. Fishes accessible for 8,000 gains. I don't even know what this is. Dolphins accessible. This is some real degen coins, and I love it. Yeah. So we are doing something right because we brought in
coins.
I don't know.
These are coins, I guess.
I guarantee Victor knows. I guarantee Victor knows.
Victor loves swimming with these dolphins and sharks. Also, the final thing is that Allison said, you guys were arguing. Sorry, I was being funny. She said fight. She meant fight. I was like, Allison, are you like hopping on a flight and you have to tell us, like, I got to get on my flight?
Allison got gaslighting us.
Yeah. And she too waves. Good morning. How you doing? Or good afternoon or good night. Good evening. I'm not sure where you are. But can we, I want to ask you guys, actually, if you don't mind, I want to share some quotes from Miss Yellen, if I could.
Yeah, please do.
So most of you have probably seen, when I say most of you, I assume that people here, regardless of gender, have seen The Wolf of Wall Street because you're fascinated by corruption, money, and power. And in The Wolf of Wall Street, there's that famous scene where Leo's like, I should step down because the SEC is barking and the FBI is like right on him. And he has that whole, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm staying. You can't take me away. And then he obviously gets arrested and has to go to jail. Janet Yellen had that like same moment for me because recently she said, I have committed to staying as Treasury Secretary. I have no plan to leave. And she's just like at the podium saying that smug face. And we're basically diving towards a global recession. So I just thought that was kind of like her Leonardo DiCaprio moment where like maybe she should step aside and let someone else do it.
Well, it kind of makes sense, right? Like when things are really rough, you want steady leadership and not somebody new who's got to sort of figure the job out. Usually that's what happens when you get like at least during like government transitions. like the old person stays around for a year or two just to help
Interesting.
To
make
smooth
things.
over, to patch over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it goes both ways. And maybe this is just my European club soccer mind working, where if it gets bad, you get fired and they bring in some other Joe to swab up.
Hmm.
Um, but she also said, and this
Swab.
was interesting, and I wanted to share this due to the conversations we're having about crypto. She said, it says on crypto regulation, to the extent the crypto world could deliver fast, cheaper, safer transactions, we should be open to financial innovation. And I thought that that was pretty great. She said, that said, that's not what most of it has been about. And I strongly continue to believe in what everything else we've lived through in the last couple of weeks and earlier as well says this is an industry that really needs to have an adequate regulation, and it does not. And I don't think that she's wrong. I think the Sam Bankman-Fried has really exposed some glaring holes in the way VCs are giving money, in the way companies are able to basically, crypto's supposed to be about transparency. That's like one of the biggest things. And this thing with SBF, the more you dive into it, it's just fraught with issues.
Yeah.
It's fraught with rampant corruption. It's
Yeah.
fraught with unreal negligence. And I think I sent the video to you guys, but if you haven't, he was on Good Morning America, and he gave an interview with, I think, Costas, and he just, or I can't remember that guy. It's not Bob Costas, and he just seems so chill. He seemed
Hmm.
like you caught him smoking a doobie behind Subway and he got fired. And he was like, yeah, man, let me tell you why I was smoking a doobie. When he admits in there that his net worth has gone from $20 billion to $100,000, which,
Supposedly, yeah.
I mean, allegedly, right? I'm just using that as like a hyperbolic term to go from that much money.
Sure.
But what do you guys think? This is where I wanted to transition by talking about Yellen. We're talking about government. We're talking about how that affects crypto, how that affects markets, how that affects people's basically incentives to buy and sell something. What are your thoughts on overall government regulation on crypto, and how would you like to see it kind of happen? Jay, you want to start out?
Ooh, government regulation in crypto. I mean, hmm, I kind of want them to just make crypto equal with TradFi. If you could say whatever exists in TradFi, there's a crypto equivalent for it, and crypto has to work in exactly the same way that TradFi works, I'd be cool with that. And then as we grow, we recognize that okay, there's some benefits that we have, that crypto provides, provenance and so forth. Maybe now there's some new classes of assets that we can attach on top of that, some new ways of trading value back and forth. But I think the easiest thing to do is just bring crypto into the fold and say you are exactly the same as everything else.
What stands out to me in these quotes is not so much about the regulation, and we've got to touch on Arthur's comment here if we have time. Arthur, I love your comment. And Arthur,
Yeah, me
if
too.
we ever battle back and forth on phraseology, please don't take that the wrong way. We love your comments. Like I know I'm watching the guys. Like we love your comments. Keep bringing it. What I zero in on when you bring this up is not the regulation point, but the innovation point, and this reflects back to Arthur's earlier comment a little bit. My biggest gripe against crypto to date is there have been relatively, since the Bitcoin white paper and the Ethereum white paper, and even beyond the white papers, beyond any of the white papers, there have been very little real developed innovations in crypto. Very little. There's been a lot of swaps. Look at the swaps. It's copy and paste. Why? Because the code is transparent. All
Hmm.
the swaps are copy and paste with a little tweak. Not innovation there. There's very little. Now, like Curve was pretty powerful, but that was just like liquidity providers. There's been very little true innovation. NFTs were nifty, but like the minute we came up with an NFT, there was no innovation at that point. It was just like, how do we sell these as much as possible? And then and then we're like, okay, well, let's give creator fees. And now the move is to like stop with creator fees. Like, what is going on? There's very little innovation. And this is this is kind of why I'm reflecting back to one of Arthur's earlier comments is what was going on in early crypto was the ideas. We can imagine how much can be done here. But literally, the developers' fingers ain't moving fast enough, and the managers, the project managers of those developers aren't incentivized enough. They're not disincentivized enough to do a good job. So it just conflated and then collapsed so quickly. But the imagination is the interesting point. Nearly, I think, 95% of the entire crypto market so far has been, can you imagine what's possible? That conversation. Can you imagine what's possible? That's awesome. The way I reflect this back to one of Arthur's earlier comments is now that we're talking about the CBDC, now we're going, wait, can you imagine what's possible with the government? But it's the same problem. We still have to develop it. And so for me, there's been very little true innovation, and props to the real innovation, because there has been some real innovation that I love. Go ahead, Jarrett. You're chomping at the bit at some.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot more innovation than I think you maybe give it credit. I think that anytime you're on the bleeding edge of new technology, you're going to be in an 80, like Pareto principle this, right? You're going to be in an 80% dream state, 20% reality.
Sure.
And even that is going to be super niche. I mean,
Yeah.
the three of us had to come together. We've never met because I can't have these conversations with nearly any of my friends, you
Sure.
know, like that's how small this community is.
Yeah.
I've never met any of the people in the comments, and Victor and I have chatted now total hours and hours in chats, and he was on my
Yeah.
podcast. And so I think the innovation is happening, but like, once again, this is the internet in the 90s, you know, this is still internet in 1999. And so I think a lot of innovation has happened, but yeah, there's definitely more innovation in front of us than there is behind us. But in the
Yes.
same way, Mark Zuckerberg's probably saying the same thing to his board when he's on Facebook. He's like, we've done a lot, but honestly, we have so much more to go. You know, we still have to figure out how we're going to maybe make our cryptocurrency, if we're ever going to do that. We've tried that for 8 years. We suck at that. We still got to do AR. We still got to do VR. I'm still trying to make a metaverse. I dropped 70 billion into that. So I think when you're on the bleeding edge of something, there's always going to be more innovation that needs to be done than has to be in the past, than like has been done. So I don't know. I mean, you talk about, Grant, when you got into Bitcoin, I think you were the earliest out of the three of us, how you had to like basically put together a computer system and figure it out. Well, now there's a great thing like Coinbase that has amazing UX. Yeah, it has high fees, but like it exists. Now there's like the Ledger wallet. Like now there's MetaMask. Like there's all these things that have grown. Are they crazy on the innovation? No. But like the seatbelt isn't that innovative either, but it helped humanity, you know? So I think like
what is the degree of innovation?
Yeah, like the 1% change is happening all the time is great. Even the fact that the SEC is talking about crypto and saying, we don't understand this innovation, we need to stay open to it, but we also realize it needs to be regulated.
Yeah,
that is so much better than where we were in 2017, where they didn't even have an opinion on it. It was just, no, we should just squash it. Like, this is dangerous. I'll insert FUD narrative. So I think it's really come a long way. And I think by 2025, 2026, which are the dates I'll continue to give for the next bull run, you know, it's going to even be, you know, more and more people are going to come to us. And that's the point. That's why we're here, right? We're positioning ourselves to be able to take all those answers and support people in that. I want to read Victor's. Actually, I'm going to read Victor's. He said, actually, no. Oh, no. Yeah. Sorry. Put that one up. The Arthur.
Because I also have a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll read it. And then Grant, why don't you comment? And then Jay, if you want to hop in on Victor's, because I think that's the sweet rewards. Arthur says, we do not fully understand the overreach that governments have over the platforms that are being used by the masses in the Web 2 world. I believe this is a great point by him. We won't know. In the Web 3 world, we will know whether that overreach exists or it's purely speculative. I love this take. I just love it. Grant, you want to take away?
I have to gracefully disagree from this one aspect. We don't know. I agree with the first part of the statement. We don't know the full degree that the governments have over platforms being used by the masses in the Web 2 world, and we won't. But I personally have gotten a glimpse. I have very sensitive contacts in the government and who have been in global security. And back in 2012, talking about crypto, they were showing me the full reach that in the US, the NSA had over all the social media platforms, as well as the telecoms, like full reach metadata scraping. Like, It's now public knowledge. Like you can just go find the public knowledge. Back then it was super secret. That tells me something. Oh my God, look how manipulative the government is. Nope. What that tells me is look how much power they have not yet wielded. If they have their fingers so deep in everything, and it still hasn't put me in a FEMA camp, then what's the problem?
Well, great. I think that many people would say that you don't have to go to a FEMA camp to be fully, completely controlled by the government.
Like if we're getting into the algorithms, I would agree. Like we're getting into how the government is using algorithms to influence my thinking and how I operate and that sort of thing. But my point is this: I believe I assume the government has total reach. I go through life assuming the government has 100% total overreach. And I believe now in Web3, I don't believe we'll know any more or any less than we know in Web2. That's the part I disagree with. My point is, I think it's completely irrelevant. I think it's completely irrelevant on how we bear ourselves because they have had this power in every in my worldview, my subjective opinion. They have had this reach for so long in the United States, and for some reason, and I'm not going to call it goodness, it has not oppressed me or anyone I know. Oppressed me. Now, in other countries, in other parts of the world, in China, in Iran, granted, there are bad countries and bad governments. And granted, I believe the US government isn't all good either. But there's some dynamic tension in the United States that they have had this more power than any country from a digital perspective from like 2001 and on, that I'm still not oppressed. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would argue that China and Russia have way better technology on a mass level and are surveilling more. And they're just open about it because they can be, because they're just like
Interesting.
dictatorships essentially. So,
Interesting.
and like they
Maybe.
actually have like literally like in Moscow, there's like cameras on every corner, literally. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm in the
London.
suburbs here and there's no like, I don't know, I just suburbs of America. It's like whatever. But Jay, there's a bunch of questions. There's a bunch of really good comments. And I want to thank everyone who's hopping on this morning. We're at time, but if you boys are cool, I think we go another 10 minutes,
Just a
maybe.
few moments at most. Yeah.
Okay, a few moments. Jay, do you want to pick up on Victor's comment, or you got some follow up from Arthur? And there's a new comment in here from David.
Cool.
I don't know why they'll end DeFi. I feel like and we were talking before about not necessarily there being a lot of innovation on the crypto side, but there's some cool stuff like DeFi that is kind of innovative. It's not like a new iPhone or whatever, but there's some new thought into financial engineering. I feel like these are the kinds of things that not the government as a whole, but individuals in the government, Nancy Pelosi and her husband are going to enjoy, right? Like there are lots of people in governments that are financially savvy and they understand that having DeFi and having access to this sort of technology only helps to enhance your wealth. And so it sort of makes sense to me that they'll continue to allow for this technology to exist rather than fighting against it.
I love that take, Jay. I think that's a very interesting take. I do think Nancy Pelosi in general is a very fascinating person because she somehow has a net worth of like 270 million, yet she doesn't make more than 280,000 a year. So clearly she knows something that the rest of us don't know. There has been some other really good comments, but Grant's got to go. So we should probably transition. Victor keeps talking about Shido. Victor, we need to have a Shido masterclass for the not crypto bros behind closed doors, AKA not financial advice. Arthur said, yeah, Grant, that's where I'm going with this. It's paramount for us to lock arms with the government, build a future together rather than hoping that they do the right thing. That's a very utopian view of how to work with the government, and I love it. I think that that's what we should strive for as citizens. He talks about SBF. I'm not even going to read it, Victor. I mean, Arthur, I'm sorry. That's a whole different thing. And David ends with blockchain is the future, but governments don't like crypto getting in their backyard. They're addicted to mass manipulation. Wow. We almost want to take that and start the episode off on Tuesday. So, Jay, I'm going to pass you the mic for some shout outs. And who do you got today?
Oh, who do I got? Oh, I had a bunch of them. I think I probably going to settle on everybody who's still trading crypto. Like right now,
Yeah.
like I haven't made a trade. I feel like in a year, but like, like
That's why you were a not crypto bro. Good job, Steve.
Yeah, because I ain't into crypto. What are you
people are
even
out
doing
here
here?
still like pumping Bitcoin
Jay's learning
price up and
Mandarin.
stuff like that. Like, shout out to everybody who's keeping the whole crypto economy going. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, man. Quick shout outs. Number one, I know that I sound like I'm pro government, and I'm not. I'm pro people. This book right here, I would suggest for anyone, True Believer, talking about mass manipulation. David, I agree. Arthur, I do believe there are massive risks with the government, but I just don't think risks can be avoided. So my shout out is A, to this book, True Believer. This is the book that most political campaign advisors use on how to get the public to follow their will. And Trump's campaign used it. Obama's campaign uses this book as a playbook. It's a powerful book, True Believer. So my shout outs to that. My shout out is to Arthur. You've had great comments that really enrich the conversation today. And my shout outs to Victor for the Shido reminder, because it takes a long time to get it through my brain, but I guarantee I will show you my transaction. I'm buying Shido today. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. What do you got, Jarrett?
Yeah. Thanks to everyone in the comments. Grant, it's good to have you back. If you don't follow us already, for some new faces, some old faces, go ahead, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And we will be back on Tuesday at 3:30 Eastern time, right here, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I'm not really sure where you're watching us, but go ahead, follow us, and we will see everyone on Tuesday. So thanks so much.